Your story changed you. Now let it change the lives of others. This is a Candy Factory Mini. So you want to write a book? With Suzette Mullen.
Join me as we follow the development of a nonfiction book from idea to completion. We'll explore the creative process as well as the nuts and bolts of pitching and publication. Get a behind-the-scenes look of my book coaching process, as well as clear takeaways and nuggets of wisdom. Let me walk alongside you as you learn to tell your story. I'm Suzette Mullen, book coach, nonfiction writer, and your host. Welcome to this episode of So You Want to Write a Book. My goal is to break down the challenging process of finding and getting clear on your story so that you can finally take action on the book that's been rattling around your head or tugging at your heart. And even if you never plan to write a book, I'll share tips that will help you become a more informed reader and a more effective writer in your work life. If you have questions, go ahead and share them in the chat and I'll be sure to answer them. So for now, just grab a pen and paper or your phone and laptop to jot down some notes and let's get started. Last time we talked about how to structure your memoir. And this week, we're talking about how to find your story. Now, getting clear on your story or your book idea is a critical step to do before you spend years of frustration spinning your wheels or writing a book that's mushy and unfocused, or maybe even worse, not writing at all. And we don't want that to happen to you, do we? So, this story finding work is the first thing I do with each of my book coaching clients. And it's what I love to do the most. So periodically on So You Want to Write a Book, I'm going to bring on one of my book coaching clients and talk about how we found their story. And we're going to talk about also where they are in their book writing journey. So let me welcome Jennifer Diaz. Hey Jen, I'm so excited you're here, and I can't wait to chat about how we found your story. First, let me read your bio so I can do some justice to an introduction for you. Jennifer Diaz is a writer, storyteller, and motivational speaker. She has a degree in social work, and her years of working in this profession, coupled with her own personal journey, have ignited a passion for helping women reclaim their inner freedom. She shares her message through her blog and at various virtual and in-person speaking events. She also leads empowerment retreats for women throughout the year, and I've been lucky to go to a number of those. You can reach Jen at jenniferdiazretreats@gmail.com, and her website is jenniferdiazretreats.com. So, Jen, I hear through the grapevine that you're going to write a book. Can you tell us a little bit about what your book's about and what the genre is?
I can. It's been a long time goal, and I'm very excited to step into this year. My book is kind of a hybrid. It's part memoir, part self-help, and it really is my journey back to reclaim my inner freedom. And I think we all have this moment, usually in our childhood, where we just have that feeling of just intense freedom, where we feel we can step into any possibility, that anything is possible, we can be and do anything. And then life tends to come along and it tends to bury that moment or that little girl. And, work, marriage, kids, story, trauma, all those things kind of bury that moment. And so for me, my journey kept taking me further and further away from that moment and that little girl. And it actually led me to a critical moment where I was driving down the road to work and I was just overwhelmed, I was stressed, I was burned out. And I had this moment where this thought crossed my mind, wouldn't it be great if I could just get into a car accident? Nothing serious, but just something that would put me in the hospital for a couple of days so I would be forced to shut everything down, to rest and to heal. And I remember pulling over to the side of the road and just shaking and thinking, how did I get to this place? How did my life become this, only opportunity for me to rest and heal is to go to the hospital. And I made a commitment at that moment that I was going to start this journey back to reclaiming who I was, that moment of freedom, which for me, when I was 5 or 6, it was this moment on a swing where my dad was pushing me, and I just felt like my toes could touch the tops of the trees and anything was possible. And so it really began this decade-long journey of trying to reclaim that. And there were many hilarious moments, but many heartbreaking moments. It led me to the below bottom of broken, and literally to the top of a mountaintop. And so the story isn't just mine, it's the story of other women that I've worked with along the way. And it also, at the end of each chapter, practical tips and resources and exercises to start you on this journey as well.
Wow. And I know a lot about your story because we're good friends, and I also just know that this book is going to impact a lot of women, because what you're describing is very universal, and we've all had our that moment where we felt free, whether it was on a swing or in some other context, and I would reckon to say that most of us have had those moments where we've had those kinds of thoughts about, if I could just, whatever. So I know that your book is going to make a huge difference. I'm so excited you're going to write it. So you came to me a couple of weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we did a story finding exercise. And you, at the time, had several ideas for a book. You right now you're very clear, you're very focused, and we're going to, in fact, in the beginning of the new year, we're going to start actually working together for you to write this book, which is going to be really exciting. But a couple of weeks ago, you weren't so clear. So
right.
Tell me about just briefly. How you were before we did our story finding exercise.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I came to you very scattered. I was a very challenging client, I think.
Nah.
And I had 3 different book ideas. And the first one, really my writing started when I was a young mother. And it was prompted by my then 4-year-old who had just learned the art of the stand in the bathroom. And he was so proud of himself for doing that. And I happened to just go past the bathroom door and glanced in, and he had just finished. And then I think in an attempt to streamline the process, I watched him plunge his hands directly in the bowl, wash, towel dry, and then walk out with a wink. And I remember thinking to myself, I am going to either need a lot of wine or a really good sense of humor to get through this. And so I started this blog, and I started writing these blog posts of being a mom to 4 kids, and some were funny, some were inspirational, some were heartbreaking. And so I came to you with this idea of just compiling all these blog posts together, kind of a chicken soup for the soul. And that was the easy book. That was the easy thing that I could do. The hard book, the book that terrified me, was the book that I'm going to write, that you helped me really focus on. The third idea that I came to you with is really a self-help guide for women, really in that raw initial stage of either separation or divorce, and just helping them walk through that process. So I was all over the place.
Yeah. So you had 3 ideas, and there was some commonality among them, but they were speaking to slightly different audiences, or as we call them, ideal readers.
Right.
And those ideal readers were also at different stages of, one was in crisis with a divorce, one was just a mom, just kind of, doing the mom thing and, struggling, and you're trying to find some humor and encouragement in that. And then the other was this idea of the inner freedom. So I took you through a series of exercises where you explored these ideas. And the first round, you still were like, but I wanna help all these women. I can't choose. I can't decide. And what I'm gonna say is that's super, super common. I would say probably 50% of the clients I work with in the story finding process have multiple ideas, and
right.
That is often what keeps people paralyzed from actually taking action, because they don't know which one to do, which one is better, which one, the strategy and all that. And so part of, what was so fun for me with you was that we got to see that. And so I had you dig in further. This is part of my process is after a client fills out a very extensive questionnaire with all these, about the different ideas and the ideal reader and how it aligns with your business and all this. I read their answers and then I have them dig deeper. So I forced you, and you didn't really want to do this at first. You were like, I can't do this. I forced you to go back to those ideal readers and really get clear on who they were and what they struggled with, what kept them up at night, and when you looked at those, I asked you to say, which one of these readers are you really gravitating to right now? And of course, there wasn't a right or wrong answer. I mean, these were all great books that you could write. So when I asked you to do that, did things start becoming clear about which direction you wanted to go in?
It did. It really did. It really forced me to kind of focus who is my target for this message? Who do I really want to share this story with? And for me, through the exercises that you provided, I really came down to the decision that I wanted to work with a woman who was kind of in her late 40s, who had older children, who was kind of forced to be on the side of the soccer field and being pulled in so many directions and just had no time for herself. Everyone was pulling everything from her. But there was still that spark in her of a recognition that girl, that moment lived deep down inside, but just had no idea where to start to tap into that. And through those exercises, I really was like, that's the story. That's what I want to do right there.
And, I also happen to know, and this is common with many of my nonfiction clients, is that you're, in addition to your day job, you're also building a business that we discussed here with your speaking engagements and your retreats and your coaching women. And so I'm guessing that your book idea that we're going to be pursue is really aligned with the women that you want to serve in your business. Did one of those, did you have an epiphany about your business first or the book first, or did they kind of, how did that happen? Because I know you're also working on clarifying who you want to serve in your business.
Right. I think it kind of converged at the same time. And what was such a relief to me is that it wasn't pulling me in two opposite directions. It all was aligned. And so the retreats that I lead are really a small microcosm of what this book explores on a very broad, more detailed level. And so it was so much of a relief for me to go, oh, this is just a bigger platform, and it all kind of connects, and it's all a piece that I need to work on anyway.
Yeah, and so what I want to point out, I kind of suggested, but I want to say it directly, is that while Jen had a couple of different ideal readers in mind, what she also was able to do was to really hone in on, like, where is that person at their stage in their life? Like, are they in crisis? Is this a book for people who are in crisis, and is that who I also want to be serving in my business? Not to say that they're, and you made a different decision that you really want to be more, proactive. They're not in crisis, but they're not feeling alive, and they're feeling burned out, and they're all of those things, and you really want to work with them before they get to that point when they feel like they need to get into a car accident, right? Exactly. And that doesn't mean that there might not be people in crisis who actually read your book and are helped by it, but they're not your primary target. So we got really clear on that. So how does it feel we're, as I mentioned, we're about to embark on actually taking this idea and making it real, and there's going to be a book out in the world, hopefully in 2021, or depending on your publication path, it might be a little later than that. How does it feel? How do you feel about that? Let's just talk about it. How did it feel to go from feeling kind of confused or paralyzed to how you feel now?
Yeah, and I think that paralyzed is a good word. And I think part of it, as any writer, you always question that vulnerability of, do I really have a story to tell that people want to read and that will inspire and people will relate to? And I think what was so amazing is getting clear on that focused message of finding that inner freedom. That has been my continuous message for as long as I've been working in this field. And it was just it was that moment where I went, I've been doing this. I'm just sharing that story, and it does resonate because I've worked with so many different women. And so now it turned from kind of that paralyzing, should I do this, to this excitement of, I am doing this, and not being able to wait to jump into the process.
Yeah, that's so great. Well, I know this is just a mini show. I wish we could talk for a lot longer, and maybe I'll get a maxi show someday, and we'll have a longer interview. But before I let you go, I just want to invite you to remind people how they can reach you. And we've got a little here we go .com. And I know that we're still in COVID land and pandemic, and you're unlikely you're going to be holding any live retreats very soon, but I'm sure you're thinking about the future. And
absolutely,
yeah,
some virtual offerings, and join my follow along on my blog and my adventure, and stay tuned. More to come.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Jen, and I can't wait to, maybe we'll have you back in a few months, and we'll talk about how your book's going. Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much. All right. So, wow. Jen, someday I'll tell the story of Jen, or actually you need to read my book that is coming out, because Jen's in my book. She's a big part of my story. So to wrap up, getting clear on your story or your big idea is absolutely critical. And you want to do this before you start to write. And there's nothing that saddens me more than being presented with a manuscript that I know a writer has toiled over probably for years. And I can tell in just a few pages that she's still not clear on her story. And that is not news I want to give to any writer. So start with your ideal reader. Start thinking about who she is. What does she care about? What keeps her up at night? And how can your book, your big idea, or your story help solve her problem? That's a great place to start when you're trying to get clear on the one story that you were meant to write. Right now, you may have several stories in you. I'd like to invite you to sign up at yourstoryfinder.com for my bi-weekly newsletter, and it's chock full of tips to help writers get started, get unstuck, and get their stories out into the world. Next time, we're going to be talking about an amazing tool. It's called the one-page book summary, which is a tool that helps you focus your book. Imagine the freedom and the excitement you'll feel when you can contain your entire story or book idea on one single page. Stay tuned for that one. I look forward to seeing you then, and in the meantime, happy reading and writing. So You Want to Write a Book is part of the Candy Factory mini-series and is a proud member of the Candy Factory Collective. You can find the show streaming on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and LinkedIn. And you can subscribe to the audio version anywhere you get your podcasts.
Over the past 8 years, Suzette has been on a mission to help writers clear the fog and cut through the overwhelm so they can move their ideas out of their head and onto the page.
Her later in life coming out journey and her professional experience as an author, accelerator, certified book coach, and Dare to Lead trained professional, as well as her time at Harvard Law School, Wellesley College, and Columbia Theological Seminary, have given her a unique perspective, as well as many of her own stories to tell.
When she's not writing or coaching other writers, Suzette can be found on her yoga mat,
advocating for the Lancaster LGBTQ+ coalition,
or hanging out with her partner, Wendy, and their rescue pup, Lucy.
Visit yourstoryfinder.com to learn more about Suzette and her life story, as well as her writing coach offerings.
Life's too short to stay stuck, so why not write that book?
So You Want to Write a Book is produced by the Candy Factory Collective at the Candy Factory Co-working Campus in Lancaster, PA.
Production support by Anna Tran. Administrative support by Ann Kirby, Ariana Henderson, Krisha Marcel, Jason Mundock, and Robert Diggs. Notes and links can be found on the show post at our website, candyfactorycollective.com. Candy Factory.
Collective.